gentlemen, we are back. Technophobia in the tech industry is our main topic today. This is episode 28.
And this is episode 28, part 2. If you haven't listened to the news we had in the first part, go listen to that. And if you are not interested in the news and interested in technophobia in the tech industry, you can stay here.
All right. We wanted to cover this topic because it's front of mind with the recent the evolution of technology, and technophobia is everywhere, and we're kind of in the middle of it. We're both tech enthusiasts in some ways, and we're also just tech business skeptics. So we wanted to resolve our own feelings about technophobia and whether it's justified and what place it has and when it hasn't been justified versus when it has been.
I would say we love technology, but we're also very suspicious sometimes with the intent of some things when it comes to technology. So this topic is actually very interesting when we deep dive into it.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. We both love tech. I wouldn't have become a tech journalist if I wasn't, interested in this topic. But one of the big problems is also just every company wants an easy ride and wants innovation without quality improvement. So that's where my area of technophobia always comes in,
I agree with you, because when I was researching this topic, I'm like, well, technophobia has it's not black and white as I thought it would be, because I'm like, people are against technology, like Amish or something. But then when I started digging, I'm like, I can be paranoid. I can be sometimes have a phobia in a way. But there we're going to go through it and explain what's the difference and why is it important.
And at least in my case, there's a justifiable level of technophobia that you should have. Because especially in this day and age where everybody wants you to invest in everything, and people lose their money, a little bit of technophobia can go a long way in saving you.
Touch grass.
Touch grass.
That's what people who have technophobia do sometimes. Anyway.
Especially the Amish.
Yes. I have a definition of the word.
Go for it.
So, what is the definition of the word technophobia? Is the fear, dislike, or avoidance of advanced technology or complex devices, especially computers. Now it's AI, it's modern electronics. It can range from mild anxiety or discomfort, or it can be intense disruptions in daily life and maybe even decision making. So basically, fear of losing control to machines or automations, concerns about privacy, job loss, or some sort of societal impact, and difficulty understanding or adapting to new technologies, right? So the kind of the technophobia is basically fear without logic sometimes even. So that's what we will talk a little bit more. And basically what we mentioned in the beginning, we love technology. So the opposite of of technophobia is technophilia.
Yeah. I've seen those.
Right, so maybe we're not that crazy, but what I read, I'm like, okay, yeah. So basically, we're enthusiastic and love technology, but not that much.
Technophilia is about to gain a whole new meaning with all these companion AI things going around.
We just spoke about companion AI in the part 1, so go listen. So that's what it is. What do you think?
I mean, yeah. Look, we already discussed the main notion of it, but technophobia in this case can be really severe, where people are terrified of any bit of technology being in there. They're always terrified that everything's taking their cookies, everything's taking their tracking them, everything's constantly GPS activated and connected to their Google Maps or something. And you can mitigate that. You don't have to be afraid.
That's true. Well, for me, I kind of, when I was researching this as well, and I put this into chapters as always. So kind of, I'm like, what does it mean? Where does it come from? Was it always here? How do we experience it now? I even have a table, which is going to be super fun to go through all together, that basically looks at equivalents back in 16th century, that they can track what people thought about technology, not the way we think about the modern technology, but the technology back in the days. So super cool. So the first chapter, I called it the anatomy of technological fear. Yep. So technophobia is a legitimate fear. So some people say, yeah, you're just afraid of phones. So sometimes grandmas are afraid of phones for a reason. because they don't understand it, right? So the fear that can manifest itself in clinical symptoms, anxiety, panic, and so on. So the fear is driven for core psychological factors. Sometimes even it's like resistance and afraid of change.
Yeah.
So people are like, oh no, this is too much change in my daily life, or now I have to pay using my phone and internets rather than going to a kiosk back in the days, or some sort of governmental institution to pay for things. And this new technology, and like this individual's lack of confidence in that, like their own skills, makes them afraid. So it can be even like, not that the technology scares them, but they're afraid that they're just like,
They're afraid of displacement.
or they're afraid that they just don't know how to use it, and then they just like completely limit themselves from like using it, right? So technological fear is not uniform. It's heavily influenced by social and demographic factors, as I said, because some countries, they have technologies that are more new, some countries have technologies or like same technology but a different way of using it, and that can also cause some sort of discomfort, be it like I mean, it doesn't matter if you're old or not, but this kind of phobia can be if you're like old or young, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what's your education level, gender, or socioeconomic level. So you can be kind of afraid of it no matter what. It's like, well, you're afraid of spiders. I don't know. I haven't seen a spider in my life, but then I wouldn't want to live in Australia.
Or
So
like being afraid of zombies and vampires.
exactly, that don't exist, but you can have a phobia for that. So that was very interesting. So cultural narratives in media and film sometimes help to like make the technophobia worse, and kind of put sometimes technology in a negative light, which kind of fuels that collective fear and skepticism. So basically, that the takeaway here, that this fear just exists for anyone in the world, which was weird, because I thought it's maybe only older people, but it doesn't really matter that it's older people. Even younger people, they also experience that. What do you think?
Yeah, and I just had a study open that says older people are more likely to feel it as it goes on, and it's mostly out of self-perception of technology use and feeling underconfident about being able to use the technology.
Right, so this is pretty much what was mentioned, that in the studies I went through, that people just afraid of being not skilled enough, right? And that's like older people, because back in their days they did not have that.
Yeah,
But the Gen Zers, because they do have it, but they can still experience it.
This one's called digital competency.
Ooh,
And
interesting.
people who score low on digital competency often really get technophobic. But when it comes to specific types of technologies, for example, somebody can be technophobic about AI or something like that. It doesn't work that way. You can be overall afraid of a lot of the new technologies, but you can also be very specifically afraid of one and have a nitpick about it. So that will be unrelated to digital competency.
So like an app, right? So like, oh, I love my phone. Oh, you need to use this banking app. No, banks. Something like that. It could be. I mean, brain is weird sometimes.
All right. Then we have a whole bunch of examples coming up for how technophobia amassed itself. Now, we were already talking about the history of technophobia, but I want to go way, way back. Guess what?
Way
The
back.
first most notable instance of technophobia was
Tell me.
Socrates.
Wow, that's very. I did not find that
Yeah.
reference.
He thought if people kept writing books, they would lose the capacity to remember things.
I do have it, but I did not know that it's Socrates.
Yeah. Socrates was terrified of this.
Yeah.
And he was constantly going on about, oh, you need to practice the oration, otherwise you won't be able to talk to people. You'll become a bookworm. Basically like nerds. You know, these books are ruining you.
Look at my waifu.
It's a very sort of like irrational conclusion he came to, but then at the same time, we're going to talk about the Luddites, and I think they're misunderstood severely. And Luddite was turned into like a slur, pretty much, for people who didn't want to agree with the changing work environment. So there's I put these on the two like edges, you know. On one hand, you have Socrates as being like really weirdly irrational. He has no reason to believe this. On the other hand, there's a technophobia that's more politically grounded and it's much more economically conscious.
Or yeah, that's true. I wanted to say that it's also thank you, corporate America as well, capitalizing on the,
Yeah. I mean, then there's like technophobia is also the basis of pretty much all of science fiction.
could be.
Every piece of art is driven by a want or a need. It pulls at something. So much of science fiction is about either technophobia related to the machine or technophobia related to human nature, as in you won't be able to control this thing, or this thing will ruin you. Those are the two like broad types of science fiction that we often get, at least in the dystopian type. I'm not talking about stuff like I don't know, an Ursula Le Guin book, which isn't dystopian but more like utopian. Those also exist. But every dystopian type of fiction is grounded in some form of technophobia or a phobia about how people will change from technology rather than, the technology itself being bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about like how we perceive things. So for me, I was looking at that, it's like, what is the perception? And what I discovered, I mean, basically like the history of technological anxiety. And you mentioned already Socrates that basically said that, yeah, like printing press was seen as like a source of confusing and harmful abundance of information. I wish they were alive today. But Luddites movement, for anyone who doesn't know, and that was a new information for me. So in the 19th century movement of English textile workers who opposed the use of certain types of automated machinery. So basically, it's like misunderstood. So the Luddites were not irrationally anti-technology. They were skilled artisans protesting basically the destruction of their livelihoods by exploitative industrial systems, right? So basically they said, AI will take away our jobs. Well, machinery is going to take away our jobs and we're skilled.
They were conscientious objectors to the development of factories that would put entire towns out of work.
And that's what happened like with mines and stuff, right? So, I mean, it's kind of history repeating itself, and we'll get to that point as well about the eras and different primary fears that were expressed and how parallel it is in the modern era. So basically, the majority of innovations were like railroads, electricity, telephones. They were also kind of met with this a little bit of a, well, not a little bit, but significant public fear and resistance, because they basically said, hey, it's a disruption of technology. We spoke about crypto being, let's say, a disruption of technology in financial sectors.
I think that we're getting back to when it's irrational and when it's rational. And some of it is, like, for example, the fear of AI displacing jobs is already happening. I think that's a little more rational, and discussion needs to happen around that. But then there's stuff like 5G is going to give you cancer, or 5G towers are brainwashing you. That nonsense. That's the irrational kind.
Can we say that technophobes back in the days were like conspiracy theorists 101?
No, not all of them, but some of them, case by case basis, definitely.
Could be.
Case by case, yeah. One of my favorite examples of technophobia was why the English were against bicycles.
Really? Why?
Because they were afraid women being able to ride bicycles would mean promiscuity would increase. Them being able to freely travel and so on.
Oh my God! Yeah. I didn't see that.
Basically, they were taking the Saudi Arabia route. Women shouldn't be allowed to travel on their own. This is horrible.
Because then they can do things.
Yeah, exactly. So that's also a form of ridiculous technophobia.
Wow, I did not think about that, but that makes sense. So what I did, I have a table here that we're going to go through, so bear with me. It's going to be a few many examples, but it's going to look at era, technology, and primary field that like fear that was expressed, and then modern parallel equivalent of that fear. So antiquity, writing. So what you said about Socrates, right? Weakening of human memory, creating show of wisdom without the reality, right? Because you can write anything you want. So basically over-reliance on search engines and digital assistants, declining critical thinking and deep reading skills, right? So it's like basically that we don't write anymore, we don't like read anymore. So therefore, the search engines are giving us like an output right away without us actually like trying to find the source. So that was about writing. Next era, 16th century, the technology was printing press. So the primary fear was confusing and harmful abundance of books, information overload, spread of heresy. and then dangerous ideas. So basically, our equivalent of this in the modern era is going to be fake news, misinformation, propaganda, social media,
But
digital information
those things are
overload.
at least grounded in some sort of practical outcome that people are saying, okay, this can happen. My favorite kind, as you can already tell, my favorite kind is when it's based on nothing. Like, for example, somebody, you'll go up to somebody and be like, stem cells can cure cancer, and they're like, no, it's against God's design. That kind of technophobia.
That's true, but I mean, the Amish, they live this way their whole life. But yeah, basically,
Well, that's also kind of a stereotype. A lot of Amish are quite practical as well.
yeah, I know,
They'll
it's a
go to a
stereotype.
hospital when they have to. They're not like Jehovah's Witnesses who will be like, I refuse blood transfusions.
I mean, people have weird beliefs, but for me, this one was very interesting because they're like, oh no, everything you say might be wrong. And then, like, yeah, welcome to fake news. But, like, this is the equivalent. I really like that example because it's very modern day, right? So they were afraid of this in the 16th century, and now we just have a different way of communicating, but the fear is actually the same.
Yep.
In the early 19th century, the technology was railroads because railway sickness caused an unnatural speed destruction of like basically pastoral life seen as work of the devil.
Yeah.
So basically back in the days, like, you can travel very fast, very bad. Railway sickness. So basically anxiety over safety and autonomous vehicles now. So some people are afraid to drive or something like that. So
Yeah.
concerns that automation and this unnatural way of moving or is like morally wrong. And just what you just said about the blood transfusion, same thing, right? It's unnatural to move so fast, therefore bad.
Yeah.
So for me, that was a very good one. The next one would be again 19th century. When it came to industrial machinery, so mass unemployment of skilled artisans, devaluation of human crafts, concentration of wealth and power. Now, what we're going through is this, like, AI is going to take our jobs, AI-driven automation, white-collar jobs and creative jobs are going to be replaced by AI, wage stagnation, which is true though, and rising economic inequality. So they basically said we're going to be replaced by machines the same way in the 19th century during the industrial era. Basically, humans were replaced by machines, and the solution was to do what? Train them how to operate them. The same way with your AI scare, just try it, just use it and kind of enhance your skill set.
We'll come back to it though, because I have some objections against that.
Oh, lovely.
That entire process. But I'll also talk about some of the more rational arguments for technophobia and certain examples. Especially, we'll get to the Luddites. But complete the list.
Yes, the next one was again late 19th century when electricity and telegraphs were invented. So they called it invisible danger of electrocution, the wire panic, association with death and evil force, moral corruption, so something that you couldn't see. But in modern day, it's health fears related to Wi-Fi and 5G radiation. So what we as well mentioned briefly, and anxieties about the unseen influence of algorithms and whatever Wi-Fi. Even though I've seen right now, Wi-Fi apparently can locate if you're in the house.
Oh yeah.
So I've seen that news. Some guy basically invented a way to see if there was any, like, if they can see if anyone's in the house by hacking into your Wi-Fi. That was weird. I'm like, oh my god.
Like, the amount of IP addresses being used will instantly tell you that, won't it?
I mean, as well, yeah, that could be. But yeah, that was interesting in general about the basically that 5G and Wi-Fi kills your health. Early 20th century, it was about the telephone, and they call it the telephone terror. Loss of privacy, disruption of social etiquette, making people lazy and isolated.
Very relevant to today.
That's also true because they call it nowadays Zoom fatigue. So anxiety of digital communication, lack of nonverbal cues, and social media influenced loneliness. Because you don't have to leave your home now to socialize on your phone and kind of message people. Back then it was about, oh, you can just call a person, you don't have to socialize. But I totally agree with like lack of like nonverbal cues. I think that's an important one that you can only get when you obviously see people.
The funny thing is, I want to talk about the mid 20th century.
Yeah.
Because one of the most interesting things is, I don't know if anybody knows this, and they should research this as well because it's very interesting. Do you know that people used to dream in black and white?
Yeah, because the TV was black and white.
So, and then when color TVs got introduced, suddenly people started dreaming in color again. there was this little brief period where humanity was just having these black and white dreams.
Yeah.
This kind of it's kind of an incredible thing because it does change how your brain works, and it's nothing to be afraid of. I don't think that created any sort of horrifying effects or something, but it's fascinating that something like that can happen.
It was also that when the TV started showing up, the technophobes basically said, "Hey, it ruins kids' brains because kids started to have nightmares that they never
yeah.
had before." Because on TV, you can show the things that, well, basically it's an act, right?
I mean,
it's
if I had been
production.
around, I would have said it's good that they're having nightmares because no, genuinely, it's fascinating when people have like nightmares and things. It trains you to be a little bit more imaginative.
Or maybe resistant as well.
Resistant as well. Like I remember, I used to have when I was a kid, I used to have nightmares, and after I had one, I would actually have a very pleasant day.
You're like, at least I'm not gonna get eaten by a monster.
Yeah, it's probably why I still like horror movies.
maybe I need to find a psychologist to tell me about my childhood, because me and Raval will always go watch horror movies together. All right, the next one. It was the mid-20th century radio and television, exactly what you mentioned now. The distraction of children from schoolwork, housing nightmares, and fear, moral panic over content. So Cold War propaganda back then was like a thing, right? So basically countries trying to measure who has more firepower. So concerns about screen time is a nowadays equivalent of what the impact on youth mental health screen time has. So moral panics over video games, on online content, or influencers, or comparing themselves to online. So that was like the mid-20th century radio and television equivalent. In the mid-20th century, again, nuclear power. So it's basically existential threat of global destruction. Post Hiroshima days, where the invisible danger like radiation and catastrophic accidents like Chernobyl and the 3 Mile Island, right? So the fear of existential risk from artificial general intelligence, or concerns about catastrophic AI accidents or misuse, or global warming even. So it can be like, hey, these like bigger things that people are afraid of. So therefore, I'm not going to use electricity because global warming. I'm not going to wipe my butt because whatever, contamination, paper is bad. I don't know. So like, but there are many ways of like looking at this. And I have a last two examples is late 20th century is personal computers. So job displacement due to automation, privacy invasion, feeling overwhelmed by the complexity and social isolation. Yeah. Sometimes they call like the cubicle syndrome or something like that. So when people were like, hey, I came to work and now we don't need like anyone like a typewriter or something. You had a PC. So you can just sit down behind the PC in your cubicle, and after 10 hours, you're like, done. Yeah. A lot of socializing. So the entire suite of modern digital anxieties now are like amplified by that isolation and kind of accelerated by AI as well. Yeah. And finally, the last one is 21st century. This is where we live now, is AI and social media. Mass job basically losses, then surveillance, the surveillance capitalism. I really like that phrase. Algorithmic bias, erosion of reality, deep fakes, mental health decline, addiction. Sounds crazy. Like, it sounds like so dramatic, but this is literally where we are now.
Yeah. Half of those are very valid.
Yeah, and you're like, oh my God, this is so, like, it is. Uh-huh. But like what I learned from this comparison is that apparently no matter of the times, there was always this technophobia, some sort of.
Yeah, but that's just a common thread in human beings. Like every type of phobia.
Yeah, but it was very interesting that like the press, the books, the radio, the dreaming, like it's pretty cool. I really enjoy like going through this.
Yeah, we covered it, but the radio was also like thought to. They thought it would be unnatural to hear voices coming out of a box, and it would drive people mad.
Or metal music.
And that was so tied to like. So it's funny for me. Technophobia also evolved.
Yeah.
Even though it stayed the same. Technophobia evolved in a very different way because the entire idea of phobias comes from modern psychology. Mm-hmm. Before that, they used to say like you'll be demonically possessed or something.
That's true. They had to find a way to explain it.
Or women having independence will suddenly, cause the social fabric to fall apart because it'll cause like unreligious activities and they'll be like promiscuous and so on. and then you move into the era of modern psychology, and it gets rewritten, even though it's the exact same thing as like you're damaging your dopamine receptors, you're damaging this thing, and it suddenly gets technologized.
That's a fair point.
That's just how it works always, because we like to talk in the most convincing way of the times.
Oh no, it's not a Riz anymore.
Yeah. Anyway, but you can see this among like people. My favorite type of technophobes are the people who think like you should just have a natural life. I'm like, go live in a cave.
Define natural nowadays.
Define natural. I mean, they'll be like, oh no, this thing has chemicals. Everything has chemicals in it.
I agree with like the balance of things, a balance of like, because we work online, we work in marketing, we like we're behind screen for 10 hours, and then when we get off of the screen, we could take another screen or the third screen. You're behind TV scrolling TikToks. You're like, oh my god, this is insane. I just went for one TV, like one screen to another one.
I go to the gym to escape a screen, and then I'm on my phone in between reps.
Right, you're like, oh, I need to record this rep.
But it's inescapable at this point.
Yeah, so this is where like it's balancing out. It's like maybe you should get like a Faraday box, you know. It's like, I'm gonna go to work, and then you put your phone into a Faraday box, and then you pick it up like 8 hours, like an automatic lock. Anyway, but the idea is that like technology, fearing it is useless, unfortunately. But then you have to, of course, moderate it. If you're like well-being or digital well-being, how they say it now, is like 14 hours of screen time a day. Yeah, it's just not healthy.
Yeah,
you're gonna process so much info, and I mean, it happened all the time.
But I mean, even when I'm not on my phone or on the PC, I just have headphones on and I'm listening to an album or something. So I don't know how to
technology,
but I do that thing where like I refuse to go to the bathroom with a phone.
Okay, that's a good one.
I'm just like, have some time to yourself, you know.
But you need these like small rules for yourself to not use it so much. But again, it's not about fear. Now you're like fearing to be on it too much.
But self-control comes from fear as well, you know.
Yeah, fair.
You have to be afraid of something going wrong for you to exert self-control.
That's true.
So
is it called paranoia?
It is, but it's more like an asceticism thing. You know, it's not like, oh, this technology is doing something to me. It's like I feel like there is a portion of my behavior that I need to keep under control. It's more like quitting smoking than it is technophobia.
Yeah, but then there are 3 parts. When I was researching this, I managed to get to this part where they basically look at the spectrum of skepticism from phobia to principled resistance, right? So what you're talking about is resistance of using technology for a specific reason. So it's critical to distinguish between the technophobia, which is an irrational fear of technology, and technoskepticism, which is a rational, evidence-based critique of technology's application and impact on your life or something or your daily life, right? So the skepticism part is often justified as a technology not neutral and can be amplified by social biases. So basically they say, if you look at the screen too much, you will wear glasses, and therefore you make kind of they're basically a logical decision. It's like, maybe I will not take my phone to the bathroom.
I'll put a blue light filter up, man.
That's also one way but you still use it kind of. Yeah, but basically, the skepticism can be used in different ways. This is like a very simple application, but that can be also in areas of like criminal justice or housing or something that you're like, well, you want to pay for your house? Use internet that you have to pay for, buy a phone that you have to pay for, which leads to the capitalism. What was it, the word? I forgot. Yeah, like in a way that they still gonna track you. You're gonna buy everything yourself, and you still have to use the technology. So you like literally cannot avoid being tracked if you're paranoid, and you cannot avoid not using technology if you want to survive in a modern era. But then are there any mechanisms that are set up to kind of help you, but also on the political side and economic side, if you look at think about this phobia or principled resistance, it also is used as a tool. We mentioned in the previous episode about in the news section in the part 1 that basically some people don't have access to the internet, right? But then you can kind of form marginalized communities with a history of like being harmed by like not having them implement the technology, or some sort of implementation of technology doesn't exist. And when they have to like have this like crazy change, what happens? Skepticism and kind of a rational act of self-preservation kicks in when it comes to that. Like you right now, you're using a phone right now in the middle of a podcast.
It's ringing off the hook.
Gotcha. No,
Me
you
too.
cannot resist. So basically, the emerging technologies of kind of brain-computer interfaces, they call something BCIs, and quantum computing introduce unprecedented ethical challenges and related to privacy, security, social inequality, making skeptical approach essential to responsible development.
Yeah.
So not only that you as a user, you have to kind of be skeptical and principled in your use of the technology. There's the opposite side, that the companies that are producing it should be held responsible for putting a phone in everyone's pocket and making the applications that make you addicted to it, right? That we know actually like traumatizes the society.
Even aside from that, like I find it really strange that very few people take an objection to algorithms in general and how we have no control over them. Because think about it, the entire purpose of the algorithm is to change your like mental state constantly. It's to make you want to use something more and more. It's meant to pinpoint which emotions cause you to use it more. So it's like the rat in a maze not having a problem with being in a maze just because he gets cheese at the end.
Yeah, but like, why does it happen, right? So this kind of situation occurs because already I even wrote down like the modern technological anxieties, they are existing because the current systems involve, like there's no way you cannot not use it. So kind of all the systems, they already deeply integrated into like, yeah, you selling your personal data, using this app to pay for something, buying something you really cannot avoid. Or in even in the grocery store, sometimes I cannot pay with cash. I went on a trip to Bulgaria. I haven't used my card once because no one accepts cards. The gray economy is flourishing, the perfect place for a technophobe. But when I came to the Netherlands, no one accepts my cash because everyone wants me to use a card or something. And like this is like just the basic way of like having a transaction. But then when you go deeper, like artificial intelligence, right, it's like a primary driver of anxiety nowadays, because everyone's like, oh wow, this is gonna take my job, oh it's gonna stress me out, it's because then it's gonna take over my life, and then negative mental health kind of outcomes for workers who think that they are going to be so easily replaceable, or what we discussed, that in the comparison that you're just afraid of the technology because you don't have the skill to use it. So that also means that even workers who are like, oh, I'm not good and not fast enough to learn this, therefore it causes fear. And obviously social media is engineered to kind of get that engagement from you and kind of contribute to all your kind of mental health issues, and give you an addiction, and kind of government and technology companies define loopholes to kind of avoid that.
It's also meant to make you a nice little consumer, so don't forget that.
That's also true. Very good boy, follow the rules. But like what I saw, there was it Robinhood? It's a training app in US that actually, I think it's one of the first global apps that got called out for use of kind of casino addicting like engagement systems in their app. So when you buy something, there's like confetti flying. When you do something, it's nice voice, and you're like, oh wow, this is a game, this is fun, I'm losing so much money. So like, and they were the first ones who were accused by unethical use of technology to kind of cause this addiction. And then I understand when you, let's say, burn yourself once or twice or 3 times on it, you can have fear of anything that is related, like you said. It can be app specific, not technology specific, or technology specific. Like it's pretty cool. Like for me, that was like a very interesting as well case study to look at.
It turns out there was a whole thing where like there were laws had to be passed so that children wouldn't get addicted to loot boxes and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, for like Counter-Strike and
because
stuff.
They're like, this is just gambling for children, what are you doing?
That's true.
So that kind of thing you have to think about, and I'm sure there was an insane amount of research done. Not every aspect of life needs to be turned into monetization fest, let the children be children.
Was it like some of the big tech company CEOs don't allow their kids to like use a phone until they're 16 or something?
Tech people in general, they're like people who develop AI stop their children from using it. They're like, no, you need to develop these skills on your own. And, they don't get high off your own supply sort of situation.
That's true. So for me, that was very interesting as well. But then if we're talking about fear, does this make kids fear technology that way, right? Because they're so like, you have those iPad kids that can like, it's fear without technology.
I mean, kids don't have that level of fear for anything. I remember when I was a teenager, I was like, "What's the problem with using this? What's the problem with using that?" No, nothing, you know. And now that I'm older, I'm just like, well, it does make me lazy if I do this thing, and it does make me feel bad if I'm on my phone all day. You don't have a sense of purpose as a kid, so that's the main thing where you're like, and everything's a cool shiny new toy. That's the other one.
Yeah, but also it was very different back in the days. I was thinking about, I spoke to my parents and I asked like, hey, why didn't you ever limit me of sitting behind screen when I was 7 and internet? She's like, well, I like, my mom answered, she's like, well, actually I didn't know how bad internet was or is now. I'm like, it was actually much better back in the days. I'm like, it was much more fun. And she said, well, I see how it is nowadays, and if I knew the things I know now, I would never allow you to sit unlimited behind screen and use all the things that you were using back in the days.
My mom used to let me play Medal of Honor because it was about World War II, and she's like, "Ah, he's learning some things."
But now you have all these games that are actually very cool, of like, you learn coding and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I think now it's, or music, for example.
I mean, in general, a game that isn't like trying to get something out of you extra is always better.
That's
like
true.
For example, those iPad kids often end up spending their parents' credit card money on microtransactions and stuff like that.
It's true. So like, so we're kind of getting into this. There's a way out, right? So like, it's not like, yeah, it's like, you're afraid of technology, live in a cave. That's not a way. But then there's a way to kind of building this responsible way that you can trust technology without being fearful of it.
Yeah.
Right. And there's probably like a framework that can be developed. And I was looking at some of the sources and like in news reports. I'm like, well, what is being done on this? Because obviously you can call a hotline. I'm like, oh no, 911 or whatever, 112. But then you cannot say, hey, I'm afraid of my microwave. What do I do? So that they'll get to send you somewhere.
But then also, like, I wanted to cover instances where technophobia, in part, not there are complex reasons why products don't take off, but I want to discuss why technophobia can often kill a product.
Oh, tell me.
Google Glass.
Oh, yeah.
So people were like, there's somebody out there just constantly wearing a Google device on their face that's constantly scanning the environment, getting real-time data, and the other people near you don't have any say in it. This was a huge factor for why the Google Glass failed.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it is also just like it looked lame.
I agree. It's like a little glass above your eye.
Yeah. They started calling them glass holes. Anybody who used to wear that. And they would relentlessly sort of bully them.
Or your glass hole.
Yeah. This became a whole reason for this product to completely die. I can't even think of anyone in my circle who even bought it or was interested in buying it.
I think we were maybe a little bit younger and couldn't afford it.
I don't know. We were just in high school.
Was it like 2011?
I remember having this discussion when I was in high school, and people were like, "Oh, phones are improving so much, and blah blah blah. Would you get this? Would you get that?" But they were also really expensive. They were boutique items, so that's one reason that they never took off as well. They're kind of like they're facing the same issue that Apple's VR system is.
That's true. It's history repeating itself.
So the other thing was we were going to get to the Luddites. Now,
tell me.
The Luddites had a very rational reason for being technophobic, because they were like, oh, someone has come along and built a factory for the things that we usually do.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the big arguments that's made by Douglas Rushkoff, who's a great author, what factories did was they disindividuated the abilities of the average person. If you develop shoes, for example, as a cobbler, you knew every process that would happen when you were doing it by hand.
Mm-hmm.
As a machine, as a machine takes over each individual process, every person manning it knows less about the end product. So
That's
what happens
true.
is you would have to make the laces, you would have to know how to nail the shoe together, you would have to know what components go into everything, and if you're just manning the machine, you don't learn anything.
That's also true because you're just like a cog.
You're just kind of pushing a button now instead of actively developing the thing. So it also leads to the loss of knowledge, loss of that knowledge, which was a argument that the Luddites made, and Douglas Rushkoff takes it even further, and he says it's a means of taking that knowledge away from regular people and putting it in the hands of the factory owner.
That's also true. Oh, that's a very nice way of explaining that.
Yeah. So in those cases, I'm very like, yeah, this technology is gonna destroy a tradition, you know. And you can say it made it really fast, and shoes are everywhere. They're abundant now. They're much cheaper. Sure. But quality also went down severely, and now all the money flows upward to a factory owner instead of going to individual cobblers.
That's true.
So, you know, you run into these sorts of problems. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. In some ways, it's very good. In some ways, yeah, the points that Rushkoff was making make sense, but it's something worth considering, you know? These are the impacts that the Luddites were afraid of, and they did happen. So their phobia did come true.
I'm now thinking if this is gonna happen with AI stuff.
Yeah, this was actually a discussion about AI where I first heard this. So it made me think about that a lot, because now what happens is people just plug into Claude and start doing vibe coding and so on. You know,
Vibe coding.
Yeah. And we were at that talk at the TNW, and the guy's like, you don't need to learn any more complicated.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's true. He said like, just go use it. I'm telling you, it can do everything. 90% of our code is made with that. We don't even want to know.
Yeah, exactly. So that's part of the process. You dive into an industry, and now I'm just completely siding with the technophobes on this one. You dive into an industry, you destroy the expertise. The knowledge gets then transferred to mechanization rather than human knowledge, you know? And, you know, it's like those cities in Japan where there's a guy, he knows how to, like, make swords to this day, right? And he's trying to keep that tradition alive because this is a part of human history and blah, 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 and all of that.
Yeah.
You know, even aside from the economics. Something like that could happen with coding. And you can decide for yourself whether that's something that deserves to happen or not. On the one hand, it turns us all into sort of members of idiocracy, and on the other hand, it's nice to have what is usually a very boring part of labor taken up by machines.
That's true.
And then you can also get into the Marxist argument, which goes like, it removes it alienates people from the end product because you're not really actually making the thing. You're just pushing a button to make the thing, and you haven't learned anything. You're not applying anything. You're very dislocated from the end product.
Means of production. But yeah, I was thinking as well right now what you were mentioning about taking away the knowledge and what would be the gap, because I remember when I was studying, I was like, oh, developers get paid very well. As there's a lack of good developers, and now there's the same argument. It's lack of good developers because now no one's hiring junior developers. The junior developers, they'll say, I'm gonna go be a barista or something. I'm gonna switch a career. There's a gap because now media and let's say senior developers, they're developers and they have to enhance their skills. And as they get older, the gap widens, and then in the end, it's gonna be, oh, there's no one who actually knows how to do it anymore.
I have my own theories about that as well, because what's eventually going to happen is they're going to start getting all of the senior coders from like independent companies, like somebody who just like makes video games for a living for fun, you know, because that guy knows his code and blah, blah, blah. And he's practiced because they're not letting junior coders practice. Every junior coder is now just an AI vibe coding engineer.
That's also true.
Yeah? I mean, it hasn't happened fully yet, but there's a generation of them for the past 2 years that have been bubbling up.
Yeah, it's gonna get worse, man.
So it is one of those things where you lose something when technology takes over certain disciplines and takes over certain responsibilities, and you have to really think about whether it's worth the loss.
True. Good point.
And
I think you will not really find out until like shit hits the fan, so to say. and until like it will be a moment where everyone's like, you know what, that was a very bad idea. Or like, well, why didn't we incentivize to do something? Well, we should have somehow preserved this thing. Yeah, that's true.
The other problem is there's like new kinds of technophobia in my head all the time. When a new product gets released, I'm like very software technophobic, I have to admit. Because whenever a new software gets released, I'm always like, yeah, they're going to update this to become much more terrible in, in a few years. They're going to jack up the price. They're going to change it.
Upset by default.
You know how I make music. I buy hardware
That's
and like
true.
I put modules together. And the reason I do that is the hardware doesn't change. It can break down, but nobody can take your hardware and say, "Oh, you know what? We removed the buttons from it."
That's
Certainly
true.
they can do that to the software inside, but boy, that's they would be shooting themselves in the foot.
Half of these buttons don't work anymore. Good luck.
Yeah, it's insanity to me. So software people really do annoy me because they optimize everything for like cash making.
It's like, it was better before. Why did you change this?
Just look at Photoshop nowadays compared to how it used to be.
I can't use Photoshop. It's too complicated now. No, that's a good point. I think I might be as well a software technophobe because like I've used tools for such a long
Join
time.
our side.
I used tools for such a long time, and every time now there's like a new tool, I'm not going to register. But I have two parts. For me, it's privacy. Privacy, encryption, security. That's the first one. I'm like, register here, add your bank card. I'm like, no. Like, is there a way I can pay for this without actually selling everything I own? And also, when it's like a shady website, you're like, you're not going to take care of my data. Like, there's 100% chance you're going to leak it and get hacked tomorrow, and you will not even know.
Yeah.
So I'm more of a security, and then probably, so like basically what I say or where I say it. I think I'm such a lurker. I never publish anything. It's always like, just reading. Even on Reddit, I think I had made like 3 posts during like 15 years on this website. So it's about like leaking data and actually like contributing to the internet. That's the fear of mine. It's like that my data is not going to be secure. It's going to be used for like wrong purposes. Even though we're recording a podcast and putting our faces online, but that's a different topic, I guess. Well, like, but that's what concerns me now with all the AI. Well, it was security, then software, and then like this AI kind of wave that you can deep fake anything.
Yeah.
So that's where kind of my involvement goes.
And I also wanted to talk about some more practical stuff.
Tell me.
So technophobia will always run against the 5 barriers to technology adoption, which is a concept in business innovation. So the five barriers are usually people, the company relies on to drive business value and how it derives business value.
Okay.
So that's one thing that'll cause skepticism. The technology itself, culture and processes. Then there's the goals of the company and the environment itself.
Could be cultural as well. I briefed through those.
Yeah. So all of these things like lead to more barriers, and they play off against technophobia. Well, for example, in terms of the people itself, if you're targeting an AI app to copywriters, for example, they get very angry and say, this is going to replace our jobs."
Yep.
For like little to no value, or it's not gonna write like me, so what's the point? I'm gonna have to like do so much to give it like a voice that's distinct. So that's both the most that's the wrong segment, and it's also that's also a very it sparks technophobia. It doesn't just among people who you usually probably wouldn't be. They're not technophobic about WordPress, are they? So at the same time, the technology itself, the exact specifics of the technology also matter. Some technologies are more benign than others. I don't think anybody objects to having cheaper music software or something.
Or a calculator.
Or a calculator, exactly. Mathematicians didn't go on strike when the calculator was invented.
No, I'm gonna use pen and paper.
Then there's like the culture where you're introducing it and the processes that they already have. So companies are going to have a problem with certain technology and become technophobic because they're like, well, this does automate our systems, but it takes away these crucial processes that we do need, and this thing we need to do by hand for this reason.
Yeah, the ethical part is a very big one that we haven't covered yet, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. Then there's the goals of the technology can sometimes be at odds. For example, this is an interesting one. I don't know if it counts as technophobia, but it counts as a technical insight. Sometimes when you there's a rule within home appliances. If you make everything too easy, people won't buy it.
That's true. Yep, confirmed with marketing as well.
Yeah. So they'll be like, if there's a dish that's too easy to make, like just put it in a microwave, people will be like, well, I want to make it myself. It won't taste as good. And regardless of whether it does or does not, people have that perception before they've even tried it. They'll always think the microwavable thing is not going to be as good as the one you make yourself. And that's debatable. I've seen some very bad cooks that made me want the microwaved version. But it's before that's I'm talking about first impressions. That's where the technophobia hits in.
This also blends into like product development. Side notes.
Yeah.
I remember when they were making vacuum cleaners, they basically said, oh, this vacuum cleaner doesn't have enough noise to it, so therefore it doesn't feel like it
it's
actually
powerful.
like it's powerful or doing the job.
Yeah.
Or it was about soap that was not bubbling up was perceived as less clean or like less actually doing a job.
We're seeing that again, aren't we, with like electric cars?
Yeah, you need the sound inside. Oh, otherwise it doesn't sound like it's
tactile
driving.
enough. It doesn't like move the way you should. It's too smooth.
Or people are adding like tactile buttons within cars now because like, oh, it's all on the screen. Like, no, I need a button.
No, but it's not even about that. Having a touchscreen makes you a worse driver.
Well,
They've
I
done the
mean,
studies.
really, just adding a TV in your you could not use your phone while driving. You know what we should do? Huge iPad in the middle. And where you have the speedometer is gonna put another screen there.
There was that entire thing where like
my God.
once full self-driving was gonna be possible, they were just gonna put TVs into every car, and you're just like, oh gosh,
Zombie out. I wouldn't mind sometimes though, but like
it'd be nice on like a empty road and you're just going and going and going, but at the same time I would just end up checking my GPS the entire time, because I'd be like, but I hope this car didn't take the wrong highway.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, but like this is already like embracing technology, right?
And obviously environment, geographical location, this and this, the culture surrounding mores, norms. Here's a simple one. Aboriginal people were very believed that they didn't know how cameras worked, so
Yeah.
they believed that they stole your soul.
I read somewhere about that. Yeah.
So the cultural mores and that sort of thing will obviously affect and cause technophobia or tech adoption, or conversely.
What was scary to me when I went to China and what then they did to get a ticket for a train, I had to give my passport away to some lady, and she would take my passport and walk away. And I'm like, yeah, and ID didn't work, so it's only passport.
And you don't speak the language.
I don't understand anything. And she's like, passport. I'm like, here you go. She's like, walks away. I'm like, what does that mean? I'm like,
print this, copy, put it in the copier.
yeah. So basically, they would take my passport every time. They would scan it every time. Anytime I would take not a taxi, but like train, museums. So basically what happens if we went to a museum or a national park, because we're a group of people that would like stack passports, and they would like walk with 30 passports in like in their hands. I'm like, this looks bad. Like they just like run, and then they could take like 30 passports and we're stuck in here to get ourselves for organs. But that was like a cultural difference to me, because my paranoia is about data. And they basically took away the only thing I care about in that country, which is my passport. It was really interesting.
And they're just like, well, we got this. They're like, we run a tight ship. The amount of faith they have in their government is astounding.
Yeah, but this is their brainwash, because in Europe they're like, oh, there's no one here, there's no cameras, it's not a lot of people, this is great. And they say, oh no, there's no people, no cameras, this is scary. So basically them not being watched causes them paranoia that no one's watching, because they're so kind of, I'd say, used to like being observed, that if there's no one there, it's weird to them.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm like, oh, there's no
Yeah.
one. I can do anything I want. They're like, oh no,
You get
I
used
can
to
do anything I want. There's no
you
cameras.
get used to the panopticon. You begin to rely on it.
Yeah, it's very strange, very different worlds, and this is where as well I think technophobia in China is not possible. You would go mental because there's technology everywhere, and that's where also like technology really blends into this culture of not really sophisticated things, but the technology is like insane. It's next level. Europe sucks when it comes to that, but Europe also protects your data.
Yeah. They've got some good privacy laws. I'm
Agree.
happy for those. Either way, that's all I got.
From my side, the question still stays from everything we discussed is like what to do. Like what to do now. Now we know what it is. We know there's paranoia. We know there's technology, fear. We know that people are actually afraid. Who has to be responsible? Because you're like, it's like global warming. Companies, they have so much waste and I have to drink from a stupid paper straw. So kind of in the same parallel thinking, it's like how can we make sure that the companies are actually, when they build products, the people trust them, because now I open a website and I don't trust it. So how companies can rebuild trust, how the tech industry must kind of shift the design philosophy from maximizing this user engagement and you're addicted to your phone to more like digital well-being, where like schedules or maybe dimming things or something like that. So this kind of ethical design must be foundational. So like in let's say corporate America, that's absolutely disregarded. It's all like a big casino and a gambling whatever. Like the whole US is a gambling studio. But basically how we can prioritize usability, inclusivity, maybe some sort of user control. Like every time I get anything, user control is really great because black mode, dark mode, boop, just switch it. So like how can we make sure that we're avoiding manipulative dark patterns or tactics?
I mean, that's just how it works. Companies always push the limit as much as they can, and then like somebody has to implement rules.
Yeah, but it's so backwards, right?
I mean, yeah. You know about the don't kill games thing going on right now, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a perfect example. Companies trying to push the limit, and then gamers trying to go like, "Hey, this isn't cool," and then pushing the government to do the right thing.
Yeah, I paid for my game. Why is it gonna be discontinued?
Yeah.
The same for Windows, right? We spoke about Windows 10 being discontinued. And they're
Just
like, well,
saying.
I paid for it. Like, what the hell?
Just saying, this didn't happen when they were CDs. Software people suck.
So the idea is like companies kind of need to foster the culture of accountability, right? We have to keep them responsible for discontinuing games, not supporting them. Even if you have a CD, they're like, well, this CD doesn't work anymore. Still, they do it because you need a connection. I was on a flight. This is a real story. I have maybe 5 or 6 games on my phone. I'm like, I'm gonna spend some time. Every game requires internet connection. I'm like, this. And even though when I was downloading them, it's like, you don't need an internet connection, but you do need it. I'm like, I've got lied to.
I have such an annoyance with that because I still buy the CDs, right? If there's a game I really, really have been looking forward to, I like having the box art in front of me.
Yeah, but we're talking phones.
I know. But this is related. I like having the box art in front of me. But here's the annoying part. They make me feel like I bought the CD for nothing because when I plug it in,
Download.
it has to download stuff. It has to download the rest of the game. What is this? What is this nonsense? I bought a CD.
I know, like I was so upset. I'm like, these guys, like I don't even want to play these games anymore. I'm like, I'm deleting this. Like I literally just deleted it. I'm like, I thought this was on like
and then it's like you haven't updated your file so you can't play the game and you're like, oh my god.
Yeah,
I'm out of sync with the server and now I only needed the internet. What are you doing?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So I like, as you mentioned, like the don't kill the games. It's like companies have to be kind of held accountable for it. And even internally, if they're implementing some sort of AI, I think companies, they should be responsible for maybe supporting employees to kind of this support this technological transition, not just fire them. They have to be committing to kind of this, I want to say, external transparency as well, that they're doing this. Remember, it was very cool to say, hey, we are hiring diversity. And now they're like, we're not hiring diversity. I mean, they did it for a purpose. You get some like street cred from that by just like, hey, we're educating our
You
employees.
also get a few grants for doing that sort of thing where you're like equalizing the whole workplace, and you get like grants for hiring enough women where they're like, oh, this is from the women's blah 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 fund.
Yeah.
So it wasn't all just we did it to be nice.
They also get subsidized a little bit, of course, but I think it should be like a two-way dialogue, right? Like, hey, company, are like, hey, copywriters, are you okay with this? No, that's why there was a protest in the US. Hey, employees, are you okay if we give you a training and improve your, let's say, like quality of work and speed of work and productivity? If someone says no, I mean, that's fine, but then there should be a way to kind of help them understand that rather than, someone was fired because there was an AI replacement. Yeah, that like creates fear. So this kind of, you need actively involve your employees into maybe designing these processes and systems that involve AI nowadays, right? So you're not so afraid of the software or hardware kind of being replaced by that. So basically, in a nutshell, it's like there should be involvement from like ethical product design, radical transparency internally, externally, that you're going to be kind of automating things so that people don't feel useless, right? Or like lack of knowledge is making them feel uncomfortable with that, and it causes stress. And kind of keep accountable the governance and kind of be empathetic towards the employees. So like you have to keep someone accountable. That's in a nutshell. So that's what I think should happen. And what are as well, some research shows that this is the conclusion. You just have to be very transparent in communication, create regulation, and kind of avoid because also like stress and anxiety and burnout also like because you cannot keep up with the expectations.
And it's also that like you need to one of the big things is have consistent laws. Because right now they're like, oh, copyright applies to this, but then like every AI company is like, no, their copyright doesn't apply to us, and they're like, what the point? What was the point of copyright laws? But like the consumers are suffering, but this company can just scoop it all up.
And this is always like how it happens, right? You kind of build the system as you go, right? So like you put a foot and you're like, oh no, I should put a tile behind, but the rate the damage is done, the ground is ruined. You're like, okay, tile, next step. So it's kind of, again, I really don't like that it's backwards, but we know that typically governments, they work slower and they do kind of damage control rather than preservation of something. And I think it's not going to change.
Yeah, but that's also because people hate proactivity when it comes to governments. If a government starts doing something before the harm has gone too far, people go insane.
Yeah, but that's where you need communication, right?
I don't think it's a communication thing. I just think people's brains are broken. They're incapable of seeing harm. Like, just look at just all of the debate around whatever lockdowns or the debate around even having seat belts. You remember back in the day, they were like, oh my god, seat belts are dangerous. How dare you force us to wear them?
I cannot drink a beer before, driving. Terrible. Yeah. Taking away my rights.
So then, like, enough people had to suffer before the government had the data to be able to justify it. So my point is that people are just sometimes too stupid to see the future first.
That also happens.
And, they're anti-data as well.
Yeah, but I think like technophobia and paranoia, like I feel that nowadays technophobia might be like on a decline, but the paranoia should be on the rise. And that is, I don't see that that's happening. And that I think involves in what you said, they're taking away the knowledge.
Yeah.
And I feel to anyone who's listening, please be more paranoid and critical towards anything you see or put your data or download stuff and pick, like, there's infinite amount of tools, so please prioritize the ones you really need, or ask, or don't download it right away, don't register right away, really do some research.
Sign up for cookies all the time.
Yes, just decline them. No, don't decline them, but sometimes if you really feel skeptical, decline them. So that's the idea. So just be careful. Don't be a technophobe, be more of a kind of skeptic when it comes to technology and the way your data and information is used, and then you're going to have a much easier and maybe even healthier life. Yep. And a little bit less stressful as well.
Yeah, that sums it up nicely.
So
that's the episode.
Thank you, everyone. This was part 2 of episode 28. If you want to hear the fun news that we were coming up with in the previous part,
you can see it in the form of either shorts or the full episode if you're more interested. Check out either one of those.
Yes, and thank you, everyone, and until next time.
Bye.